Welcome to Chattin 88. If you're just tuning in, hey, that's great. Oh, every single week we have a guest. 'Cause spending time with me, oh, spending time with me, spending time with me is the best. Oh, yeah. Welcome, everybody, to Chattin' 88s at 8 with your host, you guessed it, Curtis LaBelle, coming at you from Studio C here. And today has been an interesting day, let me tell you. We have another 2 weeks of lockdown here where we are in Alberta, and I have to tell you, it is getting to me, and I feel like every single thing that goes wrong, I am to blame. I am taking on all the negative energy, and I am wearing it. But you know what? If I stay focused, I can get through everything, and I can plow right through to the finish line. And a good friend of mine said, lean into 2021 with the success that you want to create out of it, and own it. And so that's what I'm choosing to do. And so because of that, I'm feeling a little bit better by the end of today. And I hope all of you are staying home, staying safe, staying warm. It might be cold out where you are, or it can be windy where we are. We had enough wind today that I'm sure Mary Poppins could have, gone 100 kilometers an hour from one end of the city to the next within a matter of seconds. Mary Poppins, eat your heart out, let me tell you, darling. And it's also been a bit of a challenge for artists not to be able to perform. And I know myself as an artist not having the opportunity to perform around and do shows and everything like that in front of an audience. You see, everything now is I guess in front of an audience, but done through technology and all streaming. And it's a lot of work to do it this way, and that's okay. We have to adapt to change, or let me rephrase that. We don't have to do anything. I am suggesting it's in your best interest to adapt to change so that you can have a different outcome. And it may be difficult, but if we can go again through the finish line with adapting to that change, we have a different result. And that's not to say it's not difficult, but cheers to all the artists who are working hard and creating something new for them, learning technology, and putting together a show even at the worst of times. So cheers to all of you fabulous artists out there in the community today. If you're just tuning in, we are live here at Chattin 88's at Studio C, and I wanted to talk really quickly about COVID and the vaccine for artists. And as artists, we are holding on to a lot of responsibility in the industry about taking this vaccine. I don't want to know if you're going to take it or you're not going to take it. I'm not really interested in knowing that, but I do want to know what your thoughts are about certain parts of the industry of having to have the responsibility of now needing to take the vaccine to be a performer. For example, down in New York, there might be stipulation for Broadway artists that if they want to be doing a show now, they have to take the vaccine and to show. I mean, we have things happening here across border to prove that you've taken the vaccine before you can even get on a flight. I've heard, I'm not quoting this, but we might be having to show an ID card that you've taken the vaccine to get into the movie theater. Now, be it crazy as it sounds, that very much is the world I think that we are moving into. And if that's the case, hey, so be it. And take it with a grain of salt and do what you want to do in order to get through it. But as artists, are you interested in taking the vaccine to give yourself the opportunity to continue to play if venues are requiring that rule or that important part of the puzzle now to continue to be a performing artist? I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that the world is changing, but are you willing to adapt to the change of the world? Please let us know. Give us your feedback. Let us know what your thoughts are about that. Put it in the comments and shoot us an email, chattin88s@8@gmail.com. Let us know, and we'll put it as a segment as we go later on. I mean, who knows? I'm not saying COVID's going away, and I'm not saying it's here to stay, but I can certainly say that it is here now, and it's what we do now to affect the future. And what is your part in it as an artist? Let us know, and what you're doing with the vaccine. All right, we've come to the second part. That was our opening. Again, welcome. My name is Curtis, and I'm your host for Chattin' 88s. And we're at the part now where I am going to sing you a lovely song. I'm going to toss that off to the side. And the show here, Chattin' 88s, where we are presenting Canadian content for Canadian musicians and industry professionals in Canada. And usually what we have done, as we are now on season 2, episode 2, season 2, episode 2, season 2. Okay, I'm done. This is very exciting. We've had artists in the past where they have sung a song, original Canadian content. And this month for January in this season, we have professionals in the industry for copyright licensing, which is our guest tonight, Jennifer Beavis. Last week we had artist management, CJ. We have a great guest next week and a week after that we'll talk about. So January is about the, I guess you could say, the behind the scenes of the music industry. But before we get into that, I, as an artist, since we don't have a specific artist here today to sing for you, I'm going to sing for you. And I have sung this before, and I feel like I want to give a little more justice to it. This is an original song called You Found Me. I push through the shattered glass just like you do. I feel lonely when there's only me, not you. Can't be afraid to be apart anymore. Take my hand, I'll show you what I'm looking for. I wanna love you more and more. I wanna love you more and more. I wanna love you more and more. I'm so happy you found me. I'm awake in the moment we're together. Losing everything can't be forever. Oh no, the sun will rise, the smell of orange trees. Take my hand, I'll show you what you need. I wanna love you more and more. I wanna love you more and more. I wanna love you more and more. I'm so happy you found me. Look in the mirror, I will hold you in my eyes. You're my first class ticket, oh, you're my baby in my life. All I know is I want you forever, baby, you're the one. Baby, you're the one. I wanna love you more and more. I wanna love you more and more. I wanna love you more and more. I'm so happy you found me. Oh, you found me. You found me. Thank you. kind of changes every time. I don't know. It's hard. I'm watching the camera and I'm watching the piano, and I'm looking the keys over there. It's a slight delay, so it's a bit slippery. But we have our guest tonight is waiting in the room, and we are going to bring her in. Ladies and gentlemen, before we do, this lovely lady I have gotten to know from The Shot. She is one of the resident judges on The Shot, which is a Canadian competition for singer-songwriters. And last year for 2019 was The Shot Remastered. And now they're into season 2, and they are doing auditions right now. And every Thursday there's live auditions. We'll talk more about that with Jen. But Jen also holds 28 years experience in the copyright and licensing Canadian music industry, and is a representation and director of that department for BMG Copyright here in Canada. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for my lovely good friend, Jennifer Beavis. Jen, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm fabulous. Welcome to Chattin 88s at 8. You look smashing, darling.
Thank you. I'm in my jammies on the bottom.
Oh, are you? You know what? It's Zoom, so I kind of am too, I guess you could say. Welcome again to Chattin 88s, where we host original Canadian content with artists from across the country, as well as this month we are in season 2. This is episode 2 of season 2, and January is geared towards all of the industry professionals that work in the behind the scenes and do all the dotting of the I's and crossing of the T's for the artists in the industry. And you are a great guest for our topic tonight of licensing and copyright. And one of the things that I wanted to first, before we get into, I looked at my cards. I should have looked at my cards previous because I completely missed a segment. I do a segment called On This Day. Would you like to be a part of this segment?
Sure.
Okay, this segment is called On This Day, and I completely missed this because I just got so excited for you being here, but it's just On This Day in music. On this day in 1962, Chubby Checker went back to #1 on the U.S. charts with The Twist. Did you know that?
Back on the charts in 62? No, I didn't know it was 1960 was the original chart, I think.
Right. On this day, 1965, Bob Dylan, the recording sessions for Bringing It All Back Home, the album, were held at Studio A in Columbia Recording Studios in New York. On this day, 1968, Johnny Cash recorded his live album, Folsom Prison Blues, in that lovely place for, I believe it was over 2,000 inmates on this day. On this day, 1969, Elvis Presley began a 10-day recording session of Suspicious Minds. Very nice. On this day, I don't know what the notes are going to be when I play them. I just go ahead and sing, and we have it's the part about this, right? This segment actually is quite popular. People love it. 1973, Eric Clapton made his stage comeback at the Rainbow Theatre in London. Cup of tea, darling. Cheers to that. This one's my next favorite one here. On this day, 1990. I'm not going to tell you how young I was. New Kids on the Block had their second and their last #1 UK single, Hangin' Tough. Did you know that?
Nope, I wasn't a New Kids fan.
You weren't a New Kids fan?
I was too old.
Okay, yeah, I suppose, right? Again, I won't tell you how young I was. Yeah. On this day, 2010, Beyonce and Jay-Z were named Hollywood's top earning couple by Forbes magazine. You'll know this one. On this day, 2016, Ed Sheeran's new single, Shape of You and Castle on the Hill, entered UK single charts for #1 and #2, respectively. Thank you for tuning in today. All right, Jen, let's get going here towards yourself. So for all the listeners at home, I know we have some artists watching and other people in the industry from the behind the scenes as well. Tell us a little bit about yourself before copyright and licensing, and what got you into that? What sparked your interest into going down that avenue?
Oh, great question. When I was 11, my dad bought me an album for Christmas called Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl. And this is in the 70s. So, obviously Wings and all that kind of stuff was popular. So I kind of knew who Paul McCartney was and, all that kind of stuff. And then it'd be like, oh, what's that other guy? That George guy, I didn't really, but the Hollywood Bowl, basically one of the first redoing of Beatles albums that have been going on, for the last 40 years, is Alive with them at the clamshell or whatever, I think.
Right, yes.
Yeah, so I was hooked just listening to that live album, and I listened to it over and over again. Then I decided this is something I really enjoy, and I grew up from that point. I was growing up in Ottawa, and there was a DJ on a local station, still exists, who on Sunday nights did a bunch of hourly radio programs, and it was called Jazz 106, Blues 106, and basically the 60s at 6. So I would listen to the radio like it's the 1940s, like those 3 hours. And this DJ Brian Murphy, I'm not sure if he's still alive, was so knowledgeable that just got me more and more fascinated with everything, and the way he would talk about different things. It's kind of akin to the way that Randy Bachman talks on his show. It's more about the history of the music and all that kind of stuff. Right, and I was just hooked. And from there, it just got more and more hooked, and I geeked out on, what the music business meant. And, you go through all of high school and wanting to figure out what that all means. And I just kept noticing, I kept on going more towards what is the business side of it. And I got curious after reading interviews after interviews of my favorite artists, and they talk about music publishing, and Paul McCartney having the largest independent music publishing company at the time. And I was like, what does that all mean? The merch rights. So like I say, I was nerded out even from an early age. So I kind of decided this fascinates me and this is what I want to do for a living, not knowing how I would do that, of course, right? Like, how does one get into it? So that's kind of how I started. I finished high school, went to university. My degree has nothing to do with what I do in the music.
If we took a poll to see how many industry professionals, both on stage and behind the scenes, are using their degree, it would be an interesting poll. Maybe we'll do that here one day on Chattin.
Right, and even like people like that, people are younger, like I'm your parents' age or something. And it's kind of true for me. It's specifically what I wanted to do, right? So, I in between my summers of university, I lived in London, in England, and then went back after I graduated university, hoping to maybe break into the industry somehow out there, like just be a receptionist or something, right? Didn't really work out that way, but when I came home, I found out about Fanshawe College in London, Ontario, a program called Music Industry Arts, and it was one of the first. Now there's so many colleges in Ontario that teach music business, but because it was one of the first, I was able to, I was, at that point I was 26, so I knew that people who work in the industry must have gone to Fanshawe, and I knew it would be a networking opportunity. So, at 25 or 26, I went to college for 2 years, and it was an opportunity. Then I got the grounding in it, knowing what I wanted to concentrate on, and started my career from there.
Very cool, very cool. And I think it's safe to say, if you will, that no matter what part in the industry, be it a singer-songwriter or the person who, like yourself, working in the business side of things, not knowing how to do it, but if you have the drive to want to do it, find a way, even if it's, sit in on a meeting, sit in on a writing session, whatever it is. And that sounds like that you did that yourself. Am I to say that correctly?
Yeah. And I had to intern, and remember when I came out of Fanshawe, I was 28. And so a lot of other people were younger than I was. And, it was competitive. It was tough to kind of intern, but also being mature helped me along as well. People knew I could know how to do a job. So I was able to get in pretty early and be relied upon, as opposed to maybe, no offense to 19-year-olds, but somebody fresh out of school, right?
Right. There is a difference. There is a difference, and to acknowledge that difference in this industry especially is definitely key to success, or a form of key to success. So we have some questions from some of our viewers that have come in over this past week, and I have them here on my lovely cards, and then of course a couple of just general ones, and you know, diving into the industry of copyright and licensing. But before we go into that, can you explain to us? There's a lot of it can get stressful for an artist who's wanting to step into this industry and take that next that route of copyright, licensing, publishing, rights and royalty. All of that stuff can get very heavy, and it can get very discouraging. And I think it's important that we find a way to make it accessible as a grassroots for all, like across the board, if we can, as a plug and play. So can you quickly give us a bit of a description and a difference between copyright, a difference between that, licensing, rights and royalties, and publishing? I know they're one in the same, but also different for different genre and areas. Yeah, they overlap. So can you clarify just simply what the differences are and what they relate to?
Right. In a very basic way, copyright is the right to copy. That's in a nutshell what it means. You control that as a songwriter, a photographer, a book writer upon creation, because it's an intangible. A song is an intangible, right? It's in your head, but it is still a copyright. It's an intellectual copyright, like most arts are. So what protects your copyright is a tangible form of that expression, of course, right?
Right. Okay.
And we talk about protections of copyright and all these other things. And the different countries have different rules, but basically you control the copyright upon creation. That's a simple fact. So as I said, that means the right to copy. In the music industry, you as a songwriter control those rights, and you can assign those same rights should you get a publishing deal, or you can be your own publisher as well. So you're included in those bundle of rights, as we call it, economic rights, the right to telecommunication, all these other, things I could explain, essentially means you control it. And at the end of the day, you can also assign same should somebody enter into a publishing deal with you. And there's all kinds of different music publishing deals, but essentially, someone who's in the business of music publishing knows how to exploit your copyrights. You will ultimately control them. And what they also give you is the administration, because it can be a myriad of places to climb to be able to collect your royalties, even in your domestic territory or in, around the world. And that's what a professional music publisher does, is make sure we bring in all those royalties. What we do is once we bring in those royalties, we give you out a royalty statement, and we keep a share of that depending on the type of music publishing deal we have. But the most important thing to remember is upon creation, you control the copyright.
Okay, so a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot of people, I have spoken to people of all different forms, performing arts, poets, visual arts, all of the above. And in Canada, what are the laws and the rules relating to copyright when you say it comes down to intellectual rights? And as soon as I've wrote that, whatever it is, I own that. There's the intellectual property right. Now I write that down on a piece of paper. I score it. A lot of the, the hearsay, I mail it to myself, and then I don't open it. What are your thoughts? Like, what is that false? Is that true? What is that? Does that work?
It used to be true, Curtis, because that was kind of called the poor man's copyright prior to any kind of internet, frankly, right? This is like, there's no, computer time codes can be some kind of protection. I'm still a proponent of good old fashioned, if you write a song with co-writers, email each other and agree to what the splits are going to be. And that's proving copyright. You can register your copyrights in Canada with the Copyright Office in Ottawa. And that basically it's an ad hoc poor man's copyright, like the
Yeah.
registered
Okay.
because it's got a stamp, it's stopped in time. Now, what you need to understand is that doesn't prove your right to the song, but what it does is provide evidence that it is yours, okay? Because there's no formal way to copyright a work. In the US, there used to be with the Library of Congress. Some people may have heard of that. That actually was copyrighted when you registered your work with the Library of Congress in the US. Post 1978, that's not true. In fact, most countries adhere to what's called the Berne Convention and require no formal registration of copyrights. But what you can do is local songwriters associations or CIPO, like in Canada, the Canadian Intellectual Property Office in Ottawa, you can register that work. So if you've written the greatest hit, and then somebody comes along like, Bruno Mars and says, oh, great, I'm going to record that, and it's my song. CIPO office will go, they sent it to me on, January 15th, 2021, and you didn't come up with this until, January 2025. Kind of, that's my evidence as CIPO to prove that this is probably written before you could have possibly
have done that yourself. Right. Okay.
Yourself. And right. Also the problem is, of course, you're putting it out on the World Wide Web. You're putting it out there in the interwebs, and other people can hear it and things like that. So before you do any of those things, maybe you want to register your stuff with the Songwriters Association of Canada. Again, they will provide evidence of when you sent them a copy of that, tangible copy, a recording, an MP3, anything, SoundCloud, sure, but they say that, computer timestamps and copyright law hasn't really caught up with that stuff. It's more an actual tangible thing you can hold in your hand. It could be, sheet music, whatever it is, and they will provide evidence for you that when they received it. So that's the only kind of sure, I own it, but it's about proving I own it, right?
Right. Okay. So then so if I, just to sum that up, I guess, write a song, go and register, for example, for SOCAN, go and register it with SOCAN. So it's there. Now you register it with SOCAN. Is that technically now copywritten?
No. SOCAN will not provide any kind of evidence. They don't take a side on any songwriters. So okay. No, that's a common misconception that SOCAN will do that. No.
Perfect. No. That was a question coming up. An artist, okay, so instantly it's copyright, and I've registered with SOCAN. Is it now copywritten? And it's not, in clarification.
Formally again, copyright exists upon creation. It's proof of copyright. SOCAN will not take that position, regardless of when, you registered it today and Bruno Mars comes along in 5 years. It doesn't matter. They won't get involved. So it doesn't do anything.
Right. And SOCAN acts as the hub, the umbrella for royalties that come in distribution.
For
performances and all that stuff. So just to okay, good so clarification.
The CIPO office in Canada, Canadian Intellectual Property Office, or the Songwriters Association of Canada. Those are two bodies, instead of SOCAN, to register your copyrights with.
Perfect. And just for the viewers at home, we'll make sure that we follow up with that and put that information in. What we'll do is we'll make just kind of like a debrief of everything we talked about, and links where people can go to for that as well. So we talked about copyright. How do I know if something is protected by copyright, and what rights does the copyright owner have over that work?
Well, if you mean maybe we're going to get into a sampling discussion or something, and sometimes that's usually you can use a bar, before it's an infringement of copyright, which is not true. FYI, everybody, not true.
Okay, explain that, because I know a lot of people would be like, okay, you can use 30 seconds of a song before it turns out to be copyright. That is also false evidence appearing real going around as well. Yeah, so clarify that. Is it just don't touch anybody else's music unless you have the rights to do it?
Right, exactly. And you can ask for those rights to do it, but you can't take it. There's no amount of, I always use the example, again, being a Beatles fan, anybody would recognize the guitar strum on the beginning of A Hard Day's Night. You'd know it. Or, you take, there's a big fight because of Prince's Scream was in, oh my God, I hate when I do this, Curtis. I think of song titles.
I was just about to play the Jeopardy theme, and then I realized we shouldn't do that.
Right, because then you know, whatever. Poor the what is that? Basically, that's the tea song or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, so no, there's no portion of a song. As soon as it's recognizable, somebody can sue you for infringement. It can be as simple as one chord. Um, you know, the drum fill in the air tonight, you could get nailed for using it, right? Like it's something, that's a little uglier because it's not, but it basically acquires what we call secondary meaning. Everybody recognizes it, right? It's kind of difficult to say a drum fill, or I get that. It is difficult, and one could argue how far do you go back? Does Phil Collins have that copyright versus, you know, every other drummer prior to him? And, you know, and the same as like Keith Richards. Is it Chuck Berry or is it Keith Richards? We've got all those kinds of issues, but basically when we're talking about a song, we take a Moby or, you know, anybody who samples a lot of stuff, they have to get permission. And it's not dependent on how much you use. It's recognizable and you can get sued. And most of the time you probably would lose.
100%. I think most of the time you would lose. It's better off just to bow out gracefully.
And, or ask to create a new work out of using that sample, which happens every day, especially in urban music.
And especially now with the way that the music industry is going and how we're writing music in the technology and you know, I hate to say they call the devil's advocate, but especially through COVID, you see a lot more artists using other artists' work to, you know, to implement into their work so that they can, you know, create a new and important. People, if you're watching, make sure you follow through with all the things, all the, you know, the stuff that needs to happen. Can you explain to us what fair dealing is and how does that relate to copyright?
Right. Fair dealing is for the purpose of comment or research. So always think of a news program, right? So think of, you know, we're watching the CBC and they want to talk about, you know, such and such a person died, right? So Marvin Gaye died, or, you know, Tom Petty died, right? And they want to talk about Tom Petty. Well, they may show a little bit of his music. They may show a little bit of his video or something like that to explain to the viewers who Tom Petty is. That's fair dealing. That's not an infringement of copyright because it's for the purpose of study, research, or comment in a, I thought I turned off my phone, sorry about that. Study, research, or comment. And it's not, in the US, it's called fair use, and, you know, all these other things fall down into that thing. But in Canada, fair dealing is that. Now, Apple got a decision when we were still buying from the iTunes store in the Canadian copyright law that us auditioning those tracks for 30 seconds or, you know, whatever it was. Remember, we used to go, yeah, that's the right recording I want, and we download it.
Yeah.
They got a decision that the court said that actually was fair dealing. I'm a lay person, but I completely disagree with that argument. It's a marketing thing. It's not about fair dealing. So and the reason why that came up is because agencies and societies in Canada, SOCAN, CMRA, whatever, felt that there should be a royalty paid for that because it was a performance, specifically SOCAN. And of course, Apple went to court and said, no, it's not, it's fair dealing. And the actual decision came down and said it was fair dealing. And literally, Curtis, the moment we used to be able to watch it for 30 seconds or listen to it, for 30 seconds, there's plenty of time for us all to, you know.
That's 30 seconds is a long time.
Right. So literally the day after the decision came down, Apple all of a sudden let us audition for 2 minutes.
Oh. That's a whole song.
Yeah.
Practically a whole song.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, and now.
And then we could get into Napster and talk about all that stuff. But I mean, there's the right, simply put, there's the right way to do it and there's the wrong way to do it. And Okay, so then let's just switch here for a second. There's in the music industry, there's a lot of teachers and instructors that work with music, and so on. So is fair dealing meant for teachers, and how does that happen in a post-secondary education facility? So, for example, as a teacher myself, or have been a teacher in a post-secondary education. There's I guess whatever you could say, that the school is paying the copyright for whatever it is that we're doing, but at what point is the teacher not allowed to use fair dealing in that point?
Well, the actual use for educational, like educational uses, that doesn't fall under the fair dealing law. It's just an exemption for educational institutions. You have to be registered as an educational institution.
Right.
Back in the day, you could have sheet music and you didn't have to pay for it. Showing videos, any audio visual product in the school environment, the institutional environment, is all exempt from copyright, because it is, again, like you're saying, for purpose of comment or study. Arguably that's a fair dealing, but it's not. It's actually an education exemption, because what comes from that, as well as a tangible, like using sheet music in a music class or something, right? So
right. So let's say the home teacher, or the teacher who teaches out of their house, not in a post-secondary or whatever facility. Are they still under that umbrella in the exemption? They are still considered.
And even libraries, they have a lending exemption, right? Because a person can't keep a copy of a CD back in the day; they have to return it. So yeah, that's
right.
That's
okay. Well, how long for? I know there's been question out there. I've heard questions. I copyright something. What is the life span or life expectancy of a piece of work that's been copywritten? How long does it last for? And when do you have to?
We have a thing in the world, because we all are, as I mentioned, that Berne Convention years ago, which Canada is a signatory to. The US post 1978 is a signatory to. Post 78 works, 1978. UK, like most of the nations in the world that are, be able to produce, have the facilities and have people that are producing copyrighted works. We call it national treatment. Okay, so in Canada, it's life plus 50, and that life is the death. The clock starts ticking only after the death of the last writer. I always say, remember, John Lennon's been dead 40 years, but the Beatles stuff will not fall into PD until 50 in Canada, until 50 years after the death of McCartney, because it's a co-copyright. There are two owners of that copyright.
Okay, I didn't know that personally. That's really good to know. So, as a solo singer-songwriter, that is so that being the last person once they pass, when that happens, it's 50 years, and then if it's co-copywritten, it is that last artist that has
another writer that's in there. Common examples are, look at Canadian copyright law has not changed much. It will, by the way, have to change with the USMCA agreement that Trump put in 2 years. We've got to ratify life plus 70, which is great. I think there should be no end to copyright term, but 70 is better than 50 because it's one of the lowest in the world. But the Gershwins is always a good example. George and Ira Gershwin. One's dead at like friggin' 25, and the other one lives to 90. In Canada, the copyrights stayed in copyright until 50 years. It's still in copyright, right?
Yeah, for sure.
After Ira Gershwin died. So, George was dead at 30. So, back literally in the 30s. So that's an example of what I mean.
At what point then does the at what point? Okay, so let's just use that for example.
I'll tell you something shocking too, Curtis. Just interrupt. Jimi Hendrix was public domain as of January 1st, 2021.
Are you kidding me?
Death plus 50.
Jimi Hendrix is public domain.
But he got
on this day. Wow. You hear that, guitar players? Oh my goodness. Okay, so that brings me to that is a good segue into the next question, but I want to just double back here for a second. At what point? Okay, so whoever owns the estate, if you will, for let's use the Gershwin example again. So George and Ira, the whoever owns that estate now, and it's still in copyright. At what point I know Disney does this, they recopyright something again so that it doesn't go into public domain. There's a loophole somewhere where they can, create that new copyright. So it's another whatever. Is that a thing in music here in Canada or with the states that own it?
Film is a little bit more, I think, a little dodgier. And, when we talk copyright in recordings, that's got a different set of rules. 95 years in Canada from the first release is when the copyright and the master ends. But we're talking publishing or songs right now, which is death plus 50. No, that's hokery pokery because they're Disney. Mm-hmm. But I can't.
They can do any magic they want.
Right, exactly. So they, there could be something they could change at the end. And the only recent example in the, since I've been working the business that happened to a song was, and it got through the courts, which I can't believe it did, but Blue Danube was put back in copyright because they brought in, Curtis, an instrumentalist as a songwriter posthumously.
We're talking Blue Danube classical?
We're talking, yes, what song? Oh my God.
Are you like Blue Danube Waltz?
No, I totally screwed that up. Oh my God, I can't believe I got to look it up because now it's going to bug me why I can't think of it.
Well, you can go for it. But okay, so because a songwriter came in and did something with it, they reissued a copyright on it.
Right, and it was cheesy, and it was like a publishing company that's a major that I won't say their name, but because they're powerful, like a Disney, they were able to say, oh, even though the songwriter's dead, who created this instrumental at the beginning of the track, we consider them now a songwriter, and it got through. Now, I don't know the whole case. It could have, this publisher could have shown paperwork that said, it was supposed to be a co-copyright at the beginning of time, right? At the very, very beginning of when the song was written. I don't know. But that was one of the ways they were able to keep it in the song into copyright. And I'm going to,
forgive me for saying that sounds kind of dirty.
One could argue, but then again, like I say, without knowing the case, if there was proof that even though the writer was already dead, the new writer they wanted to add, there could have been some paperwork back in the past that said you are a co-writer of this song. And if that was the case, I would consider that legitimate. And
right. That again, I would agree with that. And I have to realize, I realized that I played Clair de Lune by Debussy, and you said Blue Danube, and I totally went all over the place. So now I'm interested to know.
I'll double check on that. But I think, again, like I say, what I think happened is that they actually had a piece of paper, good old piece of paper, that said this person is actually a songwriter. Maybe it's.
While you do that, I want to go back.
Questions. Yep.
Back to the Jimi Hendrix thing, because that was a good segue.
Yeah.
Where does public domain come in with playwright responsibilities? Because now, just explain. Public domain sounds pretty straightforward. It's public domain. I can now play Jimi Hendrix at a bar gig and not have to pay for the rights to use it. Correct?
Right. At a bar, you wouldn't pay directly as an artist, but the club.
The bar would pay the SOCAN, right, whatever, and all that stuff.
So you could record a Hendrix song without having to pay royalties.
Okay, so that's
your cover of "Wind Cries Mary." I'm assuming he's the only writer of it. I don't know that much detail. You could do a cover without having to pay Jimi Hendrix's estate.
Okay, so that is a good, that's, I got to go into the next one here because there was something else. You mean how? Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. People doing covers, that's been one of the biggest things, right, that I have seen a lot of, and I see this in drag shows, where the artist is going to use a song because they have to lip sync to it. I see this when it comes to doing covers. I know myself as an artist doing covers. We all, we don't have, a repertoire like the Beatles to be doing all originals at a bar gig. So we pull out all the stuff that we can capable of doing. Now, in this case, at a bar, like you say, it is the venue's responsibility to make sure that they are covering all bases on all levels of copyright
Right.
infringement.
And the thing is, really what happens at a bar is the bar pays a one yearly fee to SOCAN. Okay.
Right.
Then you submit, because you've written original works, you submit your set list to SOCAN, and in that you have put a Hendrix song. They will just go, okay, then now it's, instead of between 20 songs, we got to pay out that one day for that $5,000 venue license, prorated, da 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 da. We don't include Jimi Hendrix.
Right. Exactly. So then when it comes to doing social media, now I know Facebook has just put out new rules about doing live music or doing, covers of music on Facebook. A lot of artists are going to using YouTube, Twitch, other streaming platforms to do their live shows, or to do record a song, make a video, slap it up onto YouTube. And then I know that YouTube will then have their sync licensing, so that there is, if you, like, for example, I did a cover of Rocket Man, I get a copyright notice from YouTube saying that this song has been copywritten, yada, yada, yada. And if it makes any money, it goes directly to them, and I'm not worried about it. And they don't have to, I'm not slapped on the wrist. At what point do you have to, like, where does it go into play where it gets bigger than that on sync licensing for YouTube and things like that, where you want to do a cover? What hoops does a person have to go through as an artist to make sure they're following all the rules?
Well, overall, when you perform a Facebook Live or whatever, that's covered under a performing rights license, and only SOCAN needs to be, or any local society needs to be involved with that. And Facebook Canada and around the world have agreements with their local performing rights society to get logs and pay out accordingly. And the nice thing in COVID was, when people did do their Facebook Lives, and as long as they had enough viewers, they got paid just like they would a performance in a bar. So
okay, I didn't know that.
Wise, if you do a Facebook Live and you get enough viewers, make sure you register that with SOCAN, because you will get paid a fee.
Do you happen to know that number of viewers? Is that magic number?
I feel like it's 50, Curtis. I feel like the last time I heard, I could clarify that for you. Let me write that down, and I'll let you know. But I feel like it's 50 views, and then it will be payable.
Right.
Okay. Much like a venue, it's payable when there's $7 at the door, and all this kind of stuff. So
right, and for those online shows or anything like that, especially, or live shows in person before or post COVID, whatever, pre or post. Correct me if I'm wrong. SOCAN is now backdating opportunities for artists to send in any paid show that was a ticketed show, to send in a set list, and that can be prorated, I guess you can say, that they can go in and get paid for. Is that correct?
Yes, you can go back 2 years from your set, and they will pay it out. Sometimes it's also, as a SOCAN member, you should be looking on their database, because you can track, or you can see that they are actually looking for certain set lists, and it could be yours. If it was a big enough show, that they might go, could I have a set list for this, please, so I could pay it out? And there's actually a way for you to see that on your website inside your portal.
So just as I feel like I got to get SOCAN on one of the shows here, because there's a lot to do.
I'd suggest definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, so not something to just kind of brush off as an artist. Take the opportunity to really research it and get your money. Get your money. You have earned it. You deserve it.
You could literally type in a gig in their database, and it will pop up. And if they're looking for your set list, you can register it right there online and get paid. And you can go back as far as 2 years. And then your Facebook Lives, that's monetized as well, much like SoundCloud, all social media places as well. TikTok, we're on the, we're on the way of getting that monetized as well. But it's, there's still a permission for people, what TikTok does right now is only gives you a choice of certain songs, right? Like that you can use because they've got coverage for that. But there will be a performing rights license as well. Obviously, what TikTok gives you to play in front of your goofy dance videos is something they've already licensed themselves from record publishers. But the performing aspect of it is what we're working on as publishers with via SOCAN to monetize that. But when does it come? And your question was, when does UGC or user generated content become a license? When you are doing something out of context. So if you wanted to film a day in the life of you doing XYZ and you put a music to it, that's not covered by the performing rights license with YouTube.
Unless it's your music, right?
Well, yeah, if it's your music, you're not going to care. But if it's something that you're going to use any other artist's song, like
Yesterday, but the Beatles, you want to use that, you
can't just run around a day in the life and put, film yourself. That's considered an audio and a visual, and you put the Beatles to it, you technically need a synchronization license. And the way you do that is not only do you have to get your master rights license separately, we call them a side. One side is the master, one side is the publishing. You have to get a license for both of those to be able to do that.
Right.
And a lot of publishers will go in there and go, that's my song, and I didn't give them permission, and tell YouTube to take it down.
Right. You do see that a lot. And I know that there's a lot of things with Spotify right now taking out thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of songs because of the way that they've been put onto playlists and all that stuff. Follow the rules, people. How does copyright work internationally? So if I copyright something here in Canada, and where does it go over the border?
Well, as I touched on about the Berne Convention, and it's called national treatment. So, for example, go back to Jimi Hendrix in Canada, because he died, he's in 2021. He is, as of January 1st, 2021, he's in PD in Canada, but he's not in England because that's death plus 70. So everybody always thinks that your citizenship determines how your copyright is treated. It's not. It's treated the same way as Paul McCartney is in England. You, Curtis, are treated the same way Paul McCartney is in England. Even though he's a British citizen, he doesn't get any more than 50 years after his death in Canada, but you get death plus 70 in the UK.
In the UK, right.
Yeah, that's what we call national treatment. It's as if you're a citizen of the world. That's a thing that music publishers manage and deal with, and when we're doing sync licenses, and certain Johnny Cash songs, for example, are public domain in Canada, but not in the States. So they want a license for, we call those split copyrights. So different things fall into public domain at different times. So you can get a license you have to get a sync license in the US to broadcast that TV show in the US, but you don't need Canada covered, for example, or vice versa. We call those split copyrights, not only in ownership, but also in territories and where they're controlled. Some things are in public domain. And another example, Jimi Hendrix. If somebody said, I want a worldwide license for The Wind Cries Mary, we, as, let's say, BMG, the company I consult with, said, they need a license for the world. We'd have to carve out Canada in our pricing because Canada, it's PD, whereas in the US it isn't. And the reason why it isn't in the US is because there was a change in copyright law in the US for all works written prior to 1978. Has nothing to do with the life or death of the writer. It has everything to do with the date it was first made available to the public. So Wind Cries Mary in 1967, it has a copyright of 95 years. They're not even close to that, obviously, in the US.
Oh my goodness gracious. So it sounds better than a life insurance policy. Really, time has flown. We are five.
Is it? We're already close. I know. I yak. Oh my God.
No, it's great. This information has been absolutely bang on, Jennifer. and I appreciate it so much, and I know our viewers will. And this will, you know, the replay of this on all of our social platforms and Shaw Spotlight is going to be really, really good for all the artists around the block. Really quickly, moral rights versus copyrights.
Moral rights are basically a way of saying you are your song. So you as a person are reflected in your music. Now, moral rights are not something that exists in copyright law in the US, but it does in Canada. Those moral rights you can assign to a publisher, but you cannot be asked to waive them. Difference, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Say you don't have any, we can't in Canada say you don't have any moral rights. So in a contract, a publishing contract, you get the standards that's attached to your moral rights. No fur, no political, you know, all those other things. That's the moral rights thing. And a lot of songwriters can also choose, for the most part, we get permission from the writer for each and every synchronization license we do. And I can tell you in BMG last year, we probably issued, that's not songs, I could look it up, but North America wide, we probably would have gotten permission for, like, writer permission for probably over, again, I'd have to look it up, I'm going to say at least 10,000 songs. So wow. Each and every time a songwriter has to give permission because they do have a right, and in their contracts with them, they can have refusal. They can say, I'm not good with that. Imagine if you just threw somebody's, you know, a Jewish person's song in a neo-Nazi film or something. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Right? It's not cool. So we grant that permission to the writer to be able to agree to those things. And most of them, we know not to use. I'll give you an interesting example, which is outside the norm. Is Randy Bachman as a Mormon? His songs were written for beer ads. You guys know that. His songs were written to be beer ads. You cannot put them in beer ads.
Right. Fair enough.
That's a moral right.
That's pretty clear. Couple things here before we leave. Is it, I guess the quickest way to get the permission from somebody to have the rights to do a song, is it like, can I go up to Paul McCartney and say, hey, or let's say Phil Collins, I'd like to do In the Air Tonight, and he says, yes, I'm allowed to do it. Is that enough?
You don't even have to ask him, Curtis. As long as you pay royalties, basically, let's say you put out you put it out on the DSPs, digital service providers.
Yes, of course. I guess I was just being
paid. You don't have to ask permission. That's the nice part. Cover recordings just get done.
I know, but I wanted to go one step further and make a friend.
Okay. Right.
Connection,
and I'll
right?
call up Paul for you and ask him.
Yeah, hey, Paul, whatever, let's do it. Phil, whatever we got here. And quickly, let's thank licensing and copyright conversation in the bag. Lots of information presented. Quickly tell us, Jennifer, your experience on The Shot and what can we look out for this year with The Shot Remastered Season 2. And because you're a resident judge, you have been for a few years now. And I know myself, it's been a great experience having you as a judge on my experience with The Shot. What can you tell us to get some artists to sign up and get some auditions going? Because we have some tomorrow every Thursday for a bit now.
Yeah, and I will be doing an Instagram session that'll come out soon where I'm going to choose whether or not people go through to the next stage. So we're going to do the Instagram live auditions and I'll be one of the judges for that. We reformatted again, so it'll be different from your experience. And we have just basically decided that it will be a completely online show again, because in reality, we know we're not going to be out of this. We could hope and say that we could put a finale in September and people can be around each other, but it's not realistic. So we are going to have to do another show all online, but I enjoyed that because I've done both. And I have to say,
as an artist who has done the online experience with The Shot, It was smooth. It was great. I didn't feel that. Yes, I was, it's disappointing not to be able to be in the same room, but for anybody who's watching or any artist who is going to do it or concerned, oh, I don't want to do something online. Forget that mentality. Do it. It is an experience and it works great. And
it is. And we got intimate with each, all the contestants who made it as far as they did. And it's going to be more interactive this year. A lot of episodes came on where we as judges were just discussing who to go through or who not. We decided that's not interesting enough content. It's going to be more on the fly kind of, nobody wants to see us. They want to see you guys, right?
Well, I have to say, I did enjoy looking. It's so funny because I rewatch. I'm a huge fan now, and I'm super excited. This is not just a competition. This is a show, people. This is a TV show with made for TV as well on the YouTube channel. And I did enjoy watching the judges have their moments. And I didn't think there was enough, to be honest with you. Oh, yeah? I wanted to see more of the nitty gritty. I wanted to see of the disagreements between all of you.
Right,
and
right.
That's, I don't know. That's entertainment. That's TV, right?
Yeah, and you learn from that. And people learn from that. Songwriters can tune in and go, they'll see what we're talking about before, and then they can see what we're commenting on. And absolutely, I agree with you. Learn from that as 100%. Well, right? But 100%. Yeah, it's going to be a completely different format. We're pretty excited about it. We're going to try and churn out the episodes. We had to spread them out because of editing. We had to kind of adjust on the fly. But now we're hoping what we can do is just, kind of like American Idol, where it's all filmed before anybody even knows it, right? Yeah. And so we'd be able to edit and do like a week after week, much like your show. Hey, I'm going to be here at 8 p.m., Central Time every week. We want to do that for the shot as well. So that people know at 8 o'clock they can come and look, and a show will be there. And then we'll do the finale live like we did. That's pretty much the way we're going. The production side's going to go.
Fantastic. Jen, it's been a real treat. We're just over an hour here, and we've come to the end of the show. I thank you so much for joining me tonight and clearing up some of the things in the industry that the artists have become a little bit verklempt over, if you will.
I believe me, I know that. Then they just bury their heads whenever
they bury their heads, and for a lot of artists, it stops them in their tracks. They just end up right. Can you imagine how much good music? Good is as David Foster once said, good is the enemy of great. And how much great music is out there that doesn't get further than the four walls that they've written it in because they're so scared of copyright and licensing. So let's just finish off with this, Jen. What is a great piece of advice that you can share with us in a quick sentence or whatever to help artists get past that hurdle?
There's all kinds of resources where you can get help. It's not as scary as you think. Just as I say, register your works if you're in Canada with one of the Songwriters Association. I encourage you to join. There's lots of great information there. Register your work with them or the CPO office in Ottawa if that's what you're concerned about. And please, 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 as I always say, everybody's friends until it's a hit. So make sure if you've got co-writers, you write down in an email or something that says what you agree on is the split of copyright between however many you are.
And the parties that be. Thank you so much, Jen. I have nothing else for you other than you are looking smashing as always. And
first time I've had makeup on maybe in months. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. Like fun. I got to dress up. Yeah.
Well, you look great from the top up.
Thank you.
All right, Jen, have a great evening. We'll let you bow out and then we'll finish off here for the evening. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Have a great night.
Thanks, you too.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. My name is Curtis. Our guest tonight was Jennifer Beavis with copyright and licensing here in Canada. And, as that quick reminder, if you are an artist and you have written something and you're getting scared or you got cold feet about what the next step is to do, what Jen said is there are resources here to help you reach out and get your music out there so people can listen to it. Because you know what? Thank you for tuning in tonight. We had a lot of fun. That's right. 'cause every single week we have a guest, and spending time with me is the best. Thank you, everybody. Have a fabulous evening. Stay safe, stay home, and we will see you next Wednesday with our special guest, Danya Dixon, CEO of Canada Music Week.